Hello and welcome to Liberty Nation's LNTV. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. Today we're joined by Legal Affairs Editor, Mr. Scott D. Cosenza. Welcome, Scott.
Hi, Mark.
Now, Scott, it's all about the 25th Amendment from what I'm hearing if Mr. Joe Biden makes it to the White House, making it even more important who his VP pick may be. We've got Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar, Elizabeth Warren, and Gretchen Whitmer all in the running. Scott, tell me about the 25th Amendment. What does it say?
Well, I think Stacey Abrams needs to be added to the list, and Biden will have to be especially cautious about who he chooses, because under the terms of the 25th Amendment, the vice president is one of the key people who can act to see the president unseated. Now, there's sort of two things that can happen. One is that the vice president can become acting president, and the president would stay in place but have no power. And then the other is the president would be removed and the vice president becomes the president. So to unpack all that, the 25th Amendment was passed in the 60s, and it sort of cleared up some of the ambiguities around presidential succession. But what has to happen is, I think there are 15 people, Mark, codified in laws who are cabinet officers who, along with the vice president, could decide to basically remove the president of the United States if in their estimation they weren't fit to continue on serving in the job. Now, we've seen a number of instances of cognitive dysfunction in candidate Biden. So if he becomes President Biden, I would expect with age to only see more of those instances, and it could be a real factor.
Looking from a political angle, Scott, are the Democrats really hindering themselves by having somebody who so obviously to much of the voting public appears to have problems that could result in the 25th Amendment being instituted?
Mark, I find it shocking how little this is discussed by serious people. I think that, it's would be highly damaging to his candidacy, and the cynic in me thinks that perhaps that's the reason why so many members of the press who we know from studies are, 100, perhaps not 100%, but so dyed in the wool Democrat Party members for much of the legacy media. So it seems like a troubling factor that, they could get themselves a President Biden and then only turn around to realize that he's not capable of being president.
Which obviously brings us back to the running mate pick. Clearly, who do you think it's going to be, Scott?
Mark, I think Stacey Abrams is the best choice for him in this regard because of the African-American support that she can bring with her. Biden required the African-American support to win the primary season, which he did in, kind of put him over the top in South Carolina. I think the same will be true for the general. If Donald Trump's going to win, it would be very helpful to him for blacks to come out for him in a way they haven't for other Republicans, or stay home. And certainly Joe Biden will ease his path to the presidency if he can get large numbers of black people in America to come out for him. Now, the thing is, Kamala Harris is often seen by that population as not one of their own, even though that she's represented by many legacy media outlets as a woman of color. She's not a descendant of American slaves, and that actually matters in this conversation. She has an Indian and Caribbean black background rather than Stacey Abrams. So that's the sort of battle of the identity politics.
So bringing us back to the 25th Amendment here, Scott, there's really nothing that Republicans in Congress can do with the 25th Amendment. This is an entirely Democrat-led process. Is that correct?
Well, it's about who controls the vice presidency and the cabinet officers. The creators of the 25th Amendment believe that this should be regarded within the executive. They are the ones that have the power. So the people who are closest to the president, if they're the ones that say, this guy is not right, let's go ahead and remove him, rather than the separate branch of Congress. Congress does have a say in it later on down the line with voting on whether or not the removal will stay, and the president can object and then force Congress to vote on it, which would be 2/3 of both houses would be required. But initially, Mark, to invoke it, it's all about the executive branch, the vice president, and the cabinet officers close to the president.
Scott, thank you ever so much for clearing that up for us. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Mark.
And thank you to you at home for watching. We hope you enjoyed. If you did, check out libertynation.com, hit our YouTube channel, hit our Roku channel, and follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thanks for watching.